In 2024, if you still think France is one of the good guys, then there's a lot you need to learn. Let's begin with the fact that France used seashells as currency across its African territories. Locals were forced to accept these shells, which were then exchanged for the French franc at an artificially inflated rate. This allowed France to extract wealth and resources from its colonies, cementing its economic dominance over the region. Even after decolonization, this exploitative monetary system, the CFA franc, persists, perpetuating French neocolonial control over much of Francophone Africa. On the surface, the banknotes from Senegal and the Democratic Republic of the Congo appear vastly different. One depicts the iconic landmarks and symbols of Senegalese culture, while the other bears the distinct visual identity of the Congolese nation. Yet, beneath this striking contrast lies a deeper truth about the shared history and ongoing influence of a single currency, the CFA franc. Though these two nations occupy different corners of the African continent, their currencies are part of the same overarching monetary scheme. This scheme, dating back to the colonial era, has long been a tool of French dominance over its former territories. The stark visual differences between the Senegalese and Congolese banknotes belie a fundamental similarity. The CFA franc is pegged to the euro, with its value and exchange rate determined not by the will of the African people, but by the French Treasury. The origins of this currency can be traced to the pre-colonial era, when many African societies relied on the circulation of cowrie shells as a medium of exchange. These seashells became so widely accepted that they even acquired an official exchange rate with the French currency by the 1800s. However, as the French Empire expanded its reach across the continent, Paris sought to assert its control over these economic networks. Taxes were demanded in French francs, and armed troops were dispatched to local markets, forcing merchants to accept the French currency. Over time, France's grip on the money supply in its African colonies tightened, granting the colonial power access to African labor and raw materials at prices well below market value. In turn, finished goods were sold back to the colonies at inflated rates, further enriching the French at the expense of the African people. This ruthless system of French neocolonialism, known as France-Afrique, persisted even after the decolonization process. In the wake of World War II, as African nations began to assert their independence, France sought to maintain its economic dominance over the region. The introduction of the CFA franc in 1945, pegged to the French franc and later the euro, was a strategic move to preserve this control. By overvaluing the CFA franc in relation to the French currency, Paris was able to maintain its economic advantage while